When the Dallas Cowboys signed Ezekiel Elliott to a 6-year, $90 million extension in early 2019, they thought they had just solved a problem instead of creating one. After a thunderous start to his career, posting 1,630 yards and 15 touchdowns on the ground in just his rookie season, then following that up with an impressive sophomore campaign, and then another explosion in 2018, Zeke proved he was the perfect blend of power, speed, and athleticism, becoming one of the predominant weapons in the entire NFL. What do you do with the guy who was just the third player to ever total 6,300 scrimmage yards in his first 50 career games? You extend him. You have to. But ever since the ink dried on that new deal, Zeke's production has slowly plummeted further and further. His yards from scrimmage, yards per touch, and attempts per game have each declined every year, and since posting 109 rushing yards per game in his rookie season, that number has fallen every year of his career until it crash-landed at 59 in 2021. Rewind back to that first year of his extension, and nobody thought that fourth-round draft pick Tony Pollard would be anything more than a minor complimentary piece. But looking at last year's efficiency numbers, Pollard was the more productive player when it comes to yards per attempt, EPA, yards per touch, all of those. So today we're going to get to the bottom of this debate: who between the two is better? First, we'll kick it off with Zeke, diving into what he excels at, what he doesn't excel at, and then later get into Pollard. Zeke is a grinding, physical back with more of a gliding running style. He is a grandmaster chess player where he sets up moves, then knocks them down. He's a running back savant in that he can set up defenders at the first and second level to exploit holes that he himself has created. The best players can see things happen one step ahead, and that is very much Zeke. Here he sees the Giants have two high safeties, which typically means they don't have enough defenders in the box, so they'll have to rely on one of those deep safeties to come down at the snap. When defenses have the same amount of guys as the offense has blockers, if everyone gets blocked, you need an extra defender to hit the ball carrier or else he runs free. So when Zeke sees there are only 6 defenders and he has 7 blockers, he knows the safety is rotating down to gain another hat. When he sees heavy flow from linebacker Tate Crowder and safety Logan Ryan, he knows he has numbers backside with his 2 tight ends. Good running backs press gaps to set up the defense to get them out of position, so instead of immediately making this cut to the open gap to his left, Zeke presses the weak side A gap to keep Crowder and Ryan flowing to this side, and by once again pressing the next gap over, Ryan can't just mirror him immediately to the left, plus this helps Tyron Smith leverage his block even better. Because Zeke correctly presses his gap with sound technique, Ryan is just a hair too late and can't make the tackle. Zeke's style is extremely unique to just him. Naturally, all running backs watch the defensive line's movement to find open gaps, but Zeke's eyes are always trained on the second level. Once again, the Cowboys have their 2 tight ends on the line, giving them 7 blockers, and the Panthers have just 6, so Zeke knows this safety is rotating down. Watch his eyes when the play starts. Usually running backs have to read the mammoth behemoths to figure out which gaps to hit, but Zeke is able to feel that while his eyes are fixed on Shaq Thompson. He sees him quickly firing into the A-gap, so he presses that A-gap to force him inside so he can cut out. He's still processing the second level of the defense and knows that that safety is coming downhill hard too. So instead of just cutting straight upfield and risking Dalton Schultz's block becoming out-leveraged, he presses outside, then cuts upfield. He is extremely cerebral and can squeeze out every yard out of every play by executing the concept correctly. But there's been some obvious regression in his physical ability. Last year, he only broke 9 tackles. That is just 1 out of every 26 attempts, good for 47th in the league, and his average yards after contact was just 1.7 yards, which was all the way down at 41st. Zeke's mind is writing checks that his body just can't cash, where he can set up defenders in the second level with his mind and technique, but can't burst through the first level and actually make it count. Even when the Cowboys scheme a one-on-one matchup with a cornerback in the alley, And every running back ever, I don't care if you're playing Pee Wee or D1, no running back should ever get tackled by a corner. Well, I didn't see Zeke crack any of these smaller dudes on all the film I watched. Last year, he didn't have the speed to affect defenses outside, so he couldn't threaten the edge. And since he already runs mostly inside the tackles, defenses just condense towards the middle even more, making his job that much more difficult. In outside zone, the running back reads the outside leg of the tight end or offensive tackle, and if he sees the defender flash outside of him, he'll start reading back inside till he finds an open gap. However, Zeke doesn't try and take the outside enough because his lack of speed just doesn't allow him to take the edge. Even when he has a clear open lane with nobody in front of him, he's just not exploding with speed outside and maximizing the play, a reason why last year he had just 3 runs of 20+ yards. This brings us to his counterpart Tony Pollard, who really couldn't be any more different. While Zeke is more of the glider, technical, cerebral type of running back, Pollard is more the dancer, creator type. He's continued to improve over his 3 seasons, and the Cowboys have rewarded him with more attempts per game, more targets per game, and his yards from scrimmage just keeps trending upwards. His efficiency is one of the best in the NFL at 5.5 yards a pop, and advanced stats like EPA and expected rushing yards over expectation really like him too. While he isn't quite as skilled in terms of maximizing space with technique like Zeke is, he's much more explosive at this point in his career. Here they're running outside zone where Pollard is reading the first level defenders outside in. When he sees Hassan Reddick flash outside, he starts progressing his reads back in, and then when he sees Daquan Jones start to push frontside, he tries to cut back in to a wall. Pollard has excellent change of direction and footwork and can Victor Cruz his ass out of here where he turns a dead play into a 15-yard gain. He's not setting up defenses and thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead like Zeke, but that's also just not his game. He executes the concept, explodes through gaps, and if suddenly a defender flashes into his face, he can use his footwork or even at times power to get himself out of it. However, that means he's not always maximizing all the yardage he can since running back technique is so critical, and he will leave some yards on the field. It is crucial that running backs stay tight to their blockers to help them gain better leverage on the defense. When Pollard sees this gaping hole wide open, he still has to use good technique to hit it to maximize the potential yardage. With Thompson in the second level matching his jab step, Pollard thinks he's taking care of him, but by not running tight to the butts of his blockers, Thompson is able to flow over the top and meet him in space, kinda hanging Terrence Steele out to dry, and this play doesn't really go anywhere. The one area where he separates himself from Zeke is, as I said, speed. Pollard can threaten the edge on outside zone, and he can also beat defenders to a spot in ways last year Zeke couldn't. On a given play, there are spots in the defense that running backs have to be able to get to, and Pollard right now is just better at getting to those spots than Zeke is. He provides more of a ceiling for each touch, where Zeke provides more of a floor. This is a good example of a play that Zeke could probably pick up a nice chunk on. Possibly he wouldn't be able to pick up any yardage at all, but a play that Pollard is capable of making and can capitalize on big time. I'm not sure Zeke has the explosiveness and speed to get out of the way of Carl Granderson tearing ass upfield, and if he did, I don't think he'd have the acceleration to be running fast enough to break this tackle since he'd be taking it more head-on, whereas Pollard's speed turns it into more of an arm tackle. And I certainly don't think Zeke has the long speed to take this to La Casa. There are some other elements to this Zeke versus Pollard debate that I think have to be factored in. First, their roles in this offense are extremely different, where since Zeke is the volume grinder back, he has 20 extra pounds on his frame, so he can take all the punishment, plus a heavier workload. Oh, and so he can be elite in pass protection, and he's asked to grind in between the tackles where there are inherently more bodies and less room to run. Pollard gets to operate more outside of the tackle box where there are inherently fewer defenders and more room to work, and he can use his speed and agility to capitalize on all that space. He registered 3.1 yards before contact, 7th best in the NFL, and Zeke's was lesser so, not horrible, at 2.5, which was 18th. He deals with stacked boxes 5% more than Pollard, so when he isn't threatening the edge, can't get outside with speed, and is getting more stacked boxes, his stats just aren't gonna look great. Speed isn't everything at the running back position, but if you can't threaten the edge, it's a problem. And if you're not fast and then also can't break tackles, well, that's why we've seen Zeke struggle. In his first 6 games last year, he got off to an impressive 5.1 yards a run, but then after that, the rest of the way fell all the way down to just 3.5. He did have a partially torn PCL in his right knee, which happened right around when he started to fall off, so his sluggish performance on the field, at least this last year, could be due to injury rather than the great decline. It's important that we contextualize this debate of Zeke versus Pollard to understand how their roles differ, how the volume of those roles differ, and what that means moving forward. Should Pollard get more work? Yes. Should he take over as the Cowboys' lead back? No. The Cowboys do have an out from Zeke's contract after this season, so now that he's fully healthy and he's got pressure to prove who he really is, it's time for him to take this thing back over, prove that he is Ezekiel Elliott, and that he is the Dallas Cowboys running back. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and for all of you for supporting and watching this channel week after week after week. I figured out a schedule that works for me where I take 2 weeks off a year, and one of them is next week, or I guess this week. I won't have an episode on Saturday. I'm going to Israel to finally eat some real hummus and go to the beach, and I am friggin' amped up. I can't thank all of you enough for supporting me in this channel, especially my Patreon supporters. All of you guys who are here every week mean so much to me, so thank you. This next episode will be coming out August 27th, and then we finally get some NFL football. I love it. So, I guess I'll see you guys then. Until the 27th, see ya.